We're back on the Thicc podcast, and I'm going to start today's episode off with an apology, because last week I said wide receiver was the deepest position in the NFL. I fear I may have lied, because today we're going to be ranking the top 10 edge players, and it was hard coming up with this list. There are so many great, high-level, elite pass rushers that you could conceivably put 20 guys on the top 10 list, and some of them fluctuate due to injuries, down years, age, whatever, but this is the best position in the NFL in my opinion. Certainly the most athletic. These guys are all awesome. We're going to get into today's video. But first, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel, like the video. And an honorable mention real quick, I got Andrew Van Ginkel, second team All-Pro guy. Not the deepest pass rush bag, very good run defender, but not great. Statistically, per every advanced analytic, Andrew Van Ginkel was the best screen pass defender in football history last season. Multiple interceptions, 1 pick six, multiple tackles for loss, a ton of bats. No player in the long history of the sport has defended screen passes as well as Andrew Van Ginkel did last year. Pair that with the All-Pro team, 11 sacks. I think he gets the shout out from a Vikings fan.
Well, Andrew Van Ginkel, for me, it would be Brian Burns being an honorable mention. And I think with Brian Burns, there's some people saying he wasn't worth the money. Or has Andrew Van Ginkel been paid yet?
No. Well, he got paid. He has not got the contract Brian Burns did. Someone did not give him Myles Garrett money at the time.
He did not get absurd money, but I think with either of those guys, at the end of the day, they are very good A players. I think Brian Burns is better than Van Ginkel, but that's besides the point. They're very good players that are worth the money you're going to pay them because you don't have access to the elite high-end edge defenders. You don't have the ability to go get Micah Parsons or Myles Garrett or Aiden Hutchinson. So you have to pay the next best option and someone that can play at an elite level within your defensive scheme, or if it's an offensive player, within your offensive scheme. So I think some of the edge guys that are very good players we have sitting on the outside looking in, it doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't even mean they can't have elite production, but at least for me, I just don't think they're as talented as the guys I have in the top 10.
Well, I disagree that you can't go out and get these guys, because my number 10, I've got Danielle Hunter, who the Texans went out and got via trade. And he's kind of a jack-of-all-trades guy, really deep bag of moves, can beat you with a bull rush, speed to power, can beat you, can go across your face. Big physical brute in the running game, hard to move off his spots, looks like he's cut out of marble. And he's just a B+ to A- player at everything he does. He can be a game record points. If you get him with a good matchup against a weaker tackle, or you leave him by himself with a tight end, he is going to generate a sack. But if Houston wants to do anything this year, it's going to be because their defensive end play. It's going to be because they got a guy like Danielle Hunter as their number 2 edge.
Yeah, Danielle Hunter is very good. I think he's a high-end player. He would have been another one that is an honorable mention for me, right on the outside looking in. I have no problem with him being at 10. The only reason I left him on the outside is because I think he's the second best edge defender in that Texans defense, but still an extremely good player. I was splitting hairs there with a few of the guys at the back end of the top 10.
I mean, I don't think the second best defender on your own, or second best edge on your own team is that good of a reason to leave him off when you consider who the best is. Who the first best, Jesus Christ. When you consider who the best edge defender on that team is. But who is your number 10?
Well, at number 10, I have Trey Hendrickson. And Bengals fans may hear this ranking and be appalled. They may think he's one of the best edge defenders in the NFL. But at the end of the day, he's not the best run defender in the league. All of his production comes from a pass rushing perspective, which he is phenomenal at. The production he's had over the last 5 years of his career, which includes a year on the Saints, has been very good. It has been elite. The Bengals should have paid him prior to the season, so they could have gotten him at a cheaper price tag. He is worth having on your team, so I have him in at 10. And the other thing I think that is impressive about his game is he doesn't have a lot of high-end quality players playing alongside him. He was by far the best player on that Bengals defense. He gets to the quarterback consistently, so he's in the top 10 for me. Probably low for some. I think it may be a little low for you even, but
I mean, it's a little silly to put him at 10. You can't leave him off the list because he led the NFL in sacks and had 17.5 the year before. I'll get into Trey Hendrickson in a bit. At number 9, I've got Max Crosby, and Max Crosby is undoubtedly better than what I'm putting him at as my number 4 edge last year, and he is probably the player on this list most likely to move up in my opinion. The issue with him is his superpower, thing he does better than any player ever. He never leaves the field. He is always on the field and always giving 110%, as all great wide football players do. His motor is higher than anyone else. Coming off surgery to an ankle, I am curious to see if he's going to be able to maintain that for an entire year. Because if he starts taking 10, 20% more snaps off, stops being on the field on first and second down as much, is limited by the Raiders coaching staff in an attempt to preserve his health because he just keeps getting older and older, I think that takes away a lot of his chutzpah, a lot of his power. His raw volume of snaps is why he produces the way he does. That being said, it's an excuse for having him down at 9. Elite run defender, fantastic pass rusher, has a really good cross chop. Doesn't always hit it, but when he does, ooh-wee, he will be in that quarterback's face in a second. And I can understand people having him much higher on the list, but I kind of need to see it with the injury before I move him up higher.
With my list in general, I'm throwing a little bit of caution to the wind when it comes to these players being injured last season. And I think an element of the Max Crosby injury and him last year, as far as why his numbers may have been down, is he was playing with that ankle injury, eventually decided to get surgery, and then the rest of his season was cut short. So I'm choosing to believe heading into 2025, he's going to be a lot more fresh to start the season. Maybe he's still ramping up and building, not quite at his peak heading into the year, but I think as the season progresses, he's only going to get better. We'll only see the snap count get up, and presumably, he's going to actually be playing alongside Christian Wilkins this year, who was a big offseason addition heading into last season. So I think he's going to have better talent around him, give him more one-on-one matchups, and he has potentially the highest motor in the NFL. So for me, 9 is way too low.
Yeah, again, I said it. By week 5, I'm more than happy to come back to this and say, okay, I'll put Max Crosby in my top 5 and my top 4, but I need to see it be sure first.
I'm just choosing to be a little bit more optimistic. At number 9, this placement for a lot of people is probably too high. I have Khalil Mack, and while he's not getting to the quarterback at quite the same level he was earlier in his career, or even in 2023, at 33 years old, he's one of the best edge run defenders in the NFL. He still gets to the quarterback at a pretty high rate. He may not be an exciting pick at this age because we know he's reached his ceiling already at his career, but he is still very good. The level he's playing at is still very high, and I think at this point in his career, he still belongs in the top 10.
Khalil Mack only recorded 22 pressures in the year of our Lord, 2024. That is close to a quarter of some of the guys I've got near the top of this list. It's not that he's just an average run defender or an average pass rusher anymore. He is below average at that. 8 sacks. That's good, but Khalil Mack has always been a guy who converts on a relatively high rate of his pressures to sacks. Great skill to have, but he's not disrupting that much in the pass game unless he's recording a sack. In the run game, I can say he might be a top 5 edge run defender in the NFL. There's an argument to be made there, but it is much more important for the defensive end position to be an elite pass rusher than it is for them to be an elite run defender. It's also probably why I've got Max Crosby down as low as I do. I think it's a little bit silly to put him on the top 10 list at this point in his career. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he bounces back. I hope he records a ton of pressures in 2025, but it was just not Khalil Mack anymore.
Now, the ceiling isn't incredibly high, but I'm betting on maybe some other people that I have on the outside looking in falling out because their floor isn't as high as Khalil Mack. I think
you'd rather have You'd rather have Khalil Mack over Danielle Hunter going into 2025. Let me just be clear.
Not who I would rather have. I think who is the more consistent quality. Well, if in a vacuum to be your number 1 edge rusher, you'd probably rather have Danielle Hunter.
Then what are we doing here, man? Yeah, sure. I like shouting out Khalil Mack. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I got no issue with talking about him. Great guy. He does not belong on this list anymore. He just doesn't. Speaking of belonging on this list, I got Trey Hendrickson at 8. I do think you were a bit silly putting him all the way up at 10, but I understand the logic. He's a premier pass rusher. He's got really 2 moves. He just goes outside all game, beats offense tackles with his speed, with his bend around the edge. And the second they open that chest up to really try and chase him, he then does his dirty work, long arms, and puts both his arms in their chest and either goes inside, or in the case of one of the Raiders' backup tackles he wound up going against the game, he got 4 sacks, just bowls them over, throws them into the quarterback, and gets a sack. Fantastic pass rusher. That style of play comes with a dry back. He is often upfield a lot on run plays. There are multiple times you can point to last year where a tight end just manhandles him. Pat Ricard just manhandles him in the running game. He is by far the worst run defender on this list. And I said pass rushing is more important. I fully agree with that. But I don't think he's the top tier pass rusher that some of the guys that got lowered down on, regardless of the sack and pressure numbers. I think that is a play style type. I think it comes from his play style, produces that much. and he's just a bad run defender. He can be targeted on that side of the ball. It's best for the Bengals if he is not on the field in first and second down. That limits his reps, limits his ability to get after the quarterback if some team decides to pass on early down, and he's about to be 31. So I think the regression is going to kick in right about now. If he has 17.5 sacks for a third straight year, I might just concede and put him in the top 5 like Bengals fans want me to.
Well, the reason I have him low is just that lack of production as a edge run defender. I don't think he's as even bad as you're letting on, but I just think you need to do both at an extremely high level. He's not defending the run quite nearly as good as he is as a pass rusher.
He's not a good run defender, man. He's not an average run defender. He's bad. I don't think we need to get into a 5-minute breakdown of Trey Hendrickson shooting upfield.
Well, at number 8, someone who is good to very good to elite at both defending the run and rushing the quarterback, I have Will Anderson. From his rookie year where he won Rookie of the Year to his second year, production went up 7 sacks to 11 sacks. He is good at everything you could possibly want an edge defender to do. You don't have to take him off the field because he's good at everything. The only reason I have him at 8 right now, I know I said I'm throwing caution to the wind with injuries, but over the first 2 years of his career, he hasn't played a complete season yet. So when I'm looking at the other guys that are elite players that I have ranked above them, I think they have been a little bit more consistent, or I just think they are more talented, slightly more talented players.
They are definitely not more talented, and it's funny to me that you go from talking about how important the run game is, how important it is to be a balanced edge defender, and put arguably the best edge run defender in the NFL who just smokes people with his first step all the way up here. I will get to Will Anderson later in the video. At number 7, I got TJ Watt, and this is not a comment on his 2024 season. This is more so projection because he is about to be 31. He keeps getting older. Clearly, as a pass rusher, he was not as good last year as he was the year recorded 17 sacks, the year recorded 20 sacks. He had the same amount of pressures as Yaya Diaby in 2024. Half of you do not know who that guy is or what team he plays for. Diminished at that. When he got the pressures, he often converted as sacks, and his best skill forced a ton of fumbles. In the run game, high motor, not often sought out by double teams, which is kind of a knock for him. When you look at some of the guys down lower on this list, they frequently have to deal with a tight end and a tackle, a tackler, a guard. Multiple guys just ganging up on them in the run game. TJ Watt has benefited heavily from playing next to Cam Hayward his entire career, and that just opening up a ton of stuff for him in run defense. Still a very good player, but I think he's just going to keep getting gradually lower and lower as time goes on, and that's why I've got him down here at 7. I could easily move him up. Father Time could be beaten in a moment's notice, and he could record 20 sacks again, but I just don't think that's likely.
I see where you're coming from because for many of the same reasons, I'm a little bit lower than certainly Steelers fans will have TJ Watt ranked on their top 10 edge or even top 5
The AFC
edge
North
defenders.
people are going to overrank their edges. I assure you, Ravens fans, if they leave a comment on this video, it would be about why isn't Cal Van Noy on the list?
So I see where you're coming from as far as like reasons to maybe drop him a little bit from the 1 or 2 spot, but I can't bump him out of the top 5 right now because at the end of the day, while he did have his least productive season since his rookie year outside of the year he was injured, his production numbers on the field, still an extremely high-level player, not the best we've ever seen from TJ Watt, but still a top 5 edge. So I can see where you're coming from with your reasoning to drop him down a little bit or acknowledge that there may be a little bit of a drop-off from the 20 sacks TJ Watt we've seen in the
if
past.
he regresses at the same rate or even a slightly slower rate from 2024 to 2025, the same way he went from 2023 to 2024, he's not a top 5 edge anymore. There's just no two ways about it. I'm projecting some regression there given his age. That's where I'm coming from with this. I can't see myself putting him in the top 5 anymore.
I don't see him regressing that much.
You don't see him regressing, but people just get better when they turn 30. I mean, you have Khalil Mack on this list, so I guess we're enjoying some delusions of time not mattering.
At number 7, I have Nick Bosa. He had a down year last year. The entire 49ers defense had a down year. The entire 49ers team had a down year. Some due to injuries, some due to their other veteran stars not playing as good as they have in the past. And Nick Bosa is very good against the run. He's a very solid pass rusher over the course of his career. I think a degree of his lack of production last season was not playing on as talented a front 7 as he has in years past. Maybe with them adding a piece in the first round, that's going to help things out. The defense being healthy, that could potentially skyrocket him back into the top 5 for me. But him being at 7 isn't so much an indictment that I think he's going to get markedly worse. I just see a couple players making a jump over him, or other guys that have been in the league a similar amount of time in him that are veterans. I think they're pieces to their game that I like more than his.
I think you got to ignore the raw sack number this year with Nick Bosa. I don't think he really regressed. I think you mentioned it, really suffered from what he was dealing with. He did not get anyone forcing players into him. He was the one generating sacks for his teammates. No one else in that 49ers D-line would throw him a bone. I'll talk about Bosa a little bit later. I've got him higher. At 6, I've got Aiden Hutchinson. And the numbers were absolutely preposterous through the first 5 games. Some people will use that to put him as the top 3, top 2 edge player in the NFL. And I like Hutch a lot, but I got to be realistic about this. The pressures with 27 and the sacks with 7.5 is ridiculous. It is ridiculous what he got to line up against those first however many games, those first 5 games. The one sack he recorded against a starting caliber tackle was against Paris Johnson, headed with a diabolical spin move. Great play there by Hutch. Every other player he went up against is now a backup, cut, or Terrence Steele. And Terrence Steele is a terrible pass blocker. He was going up against some really bad competition. The game he had 4.5 sacks against the Buccaneers. The tackle he did that, Bryce Jarris, something school, S-K-U-L-E. That guy is now the 3rd stringer on the Minnesota Vikings. He was not producing against the highest level of people. All his moves, which he has a lot of spins, a lot of rips, everything, were landing. I don't think those moves would have landed as frequently if he had played the entire year and got to face the Darnell Wrights, the Zach Toms, the Brian O'Neills, and is it Spencer? It's Spencer Brown, the right tackle of the Buffalo Bills. His production would have fallen off a cliff. Still would have been a 10, 12 sack guy, still would have recorded a ton of pressures, but he was not keeping up that pace if he played the entire season. And he is coming off a pretty bad break in his leg. Now, a broken bone is easier to come back from than a torn ACL per se, although what Hutch had to deal with was rough on the eyes. But big dude, 6'7", really high motor, effective in the running game, cannot be blocked by tight ends consistently, and as I mentioned previously, will hit you with any pass rush move imaginable. Pair that with some extreme power and bend, and you've got a premier edge. If he comes back and plays on his 2023 level again, I'd probably move him up, but the injury is hindering me from putting him in the top 5. And the production last year was Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, I kind of called my shot, at least through the first 5 games last year. I said he was going to win Defensive Player of the Year. That is certainly what it looked like with his sack rate, with his pressure rate. It was something we haven't really ever seen before. And just to, I think the jump he made from 2023 to 2024 was glaringly obvious, because every single year you're going to play offensive tackles, you're going to play teams that aren't as good as you. And the only thing you can do is take advantage of those opportunities. And that is exactly what he did, better than anyone else in the NFL who's also playing lower quality offensive tackles.
Everyone in the NFL who played a 17-game schedule did not get the benefit of the offensive tackles Aiden Hutchinson was lined up against. It was a perfect storm of circumstances which allowed him to play the weak competition he was dealing with. I do not think Aiden Hutchinson is a bad player. That production will have fallen off a cliff and was not sustainable, and large part came due to what he was facing.
A degree of it is circumstances, and I think you'd be out of your mind if you think he would have kept on that pace and had 25 total sacks last season.
28.
Whatever it would have been. There's no way he was going to keep at quite that pace, but I do think he would have been right around 19, low 20 sacks, depending on how high of a level he continued to execute at. And when it comes to his broken leg, I'm choosing to be optimistic for him. I think there's a lot of potential for him to start the season off a little bit slower and kind of build and progress as the season goes on, as he gets stronger, as he gets more into football game shape. But I think as we see the season progress, we're going to see he's one of the top 5 edges in the NFL, and I have him higher on my list.
Yeah, I mean, we could see that by the time we get to week 7, week 8. I think he may be playing at all-pro level from then on out, but I need to see that before I shove him in with some of the truly elite guys I've got down below him. Granted, I've got him right next to TJ Watt, so not bad company by any stretch of the imagination.
At 6, I'm sorry, Cowboys fans. Micah Parsons is not a top 5 edge defender in the NFL. If you want to say he's a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL, he 100% is. He may be the best pass rusher in the NFL. His elite speed, twitchiness, bend, ability to also bump inside and generate a pass rush there is very good. But when it comes down to his run defense, it is just not there. He is not a complete edge defender when you take into consideration his pass rush and his run defense. Now, an element to his run defense taking a step back is the talent along the Cowboys front seven is not exactly that high level, so it allows teams on first and second down to run the ball a lot and ground that Cowboys defense out a little bit. So there's not as many opportunities for Micah Parsons to just go at the offensive tackle and generate a pass rush, play in and play out. But I think when you're playing a team that is a more run-centered offense, and we've seen the NFL go a little bit more in that direction, Micah Parsons is not the first guy you were picking to be the best player on your defense, and him being the best player on your defense, that's something other teams can take a little bit of advantage of.
Yeah, if he's the only good player on your defense, I agree, people can take advantage of that. The only other good players are cornerbacks. People will take advantage of that. It's okay that you're a Giants fan. I forgive you for that. It's not your fault. You were born in New York. But we cannot let that skew this heavily into the rankings. Micah Parsons is nowhere near as bad a run defender as you are letting on. I will get to him much later in the video. But for both of our number 5s, we've got Jared Verse. And a stat I found ridiculous about Verse, if you include the playoffs, he led all players with 89 pressures. That's preposterous from a rookie. No rookie has done that in living memory. Not Aaron Donald, not J.J. Watt, none of them. He's got arguably the best bull rush in the NFL. The only other person in the same stratosphere as him is Myles Garrett. He just bowls offensive tackles back into the laps of quarterbacks, forcing them up into the pocket. The reason Kobe Turner and Braden Fisk had the sack numbers they did in 2024 is because there was just a monster on the outside driving opposing quarterbacks into them. If he learns how to shed those tackles, get them off him once he's pushed them back into the QB's lap, he will start converting on so many of those sacks that he may lead the NFL. Run defender, big, powerful body, cannot be moved out by double teams effectively, stops guys from climbing, can't be reached by tackles, is able to just punch them in the chest and stop them cold. Jared Verse is fantastic, and this is a lot of projection, sure, but he won Defensive Rookie of the Year. Guys often take a really big leap statistically from year 1 to year 2, as we've seen with a Jalen Carter or a Will Anderson, and it's only up for Jared Verse.
Yeah, this is the one where we're doing the most projection, and I'm glad you've come around on how good Jared Verse is, because I was way more optimistic than you were about the Rams defense and Jared Verse heading into last season. I was optimistic the Rams would still be a solid defense because of the addition of Verse. So I think he proved that he can be a very high-end quality player in the NFL last year. We both have him ranked at 5. His raw power is incredible. His ability to generate a pass rush, he was a big reason the Rams were the closest team to beating the Eagles in the playoffs. Had 2 sacks in that game. So while it was always going to be tough losing Aaron Donald in that Rams defense, Jared Verse as a replacement is about as good as you could possibly hope for. So I think we are going to see him lead this Rams defense again and be even better in year 2. We're doing projection here, but I think if he goes crazy and super off, we can see if he approach 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, I think collectively Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, and Braden Fisk replace Aaron Donald just fine. He's been, as they would say in Moneyball, replaced in the aggregate. Rams are in a great spot.
And you didn't think that was possible.
I'm sorry, do you want me to come pat you on the back over there?
Yes.
Because you're kind of straining yourself doing that. Number 4, I got Nick Bosa. It makes no sense that an athlete as big as Nick Bosa, as compact as Nick Bosa, a 270-pound freak like him, can bend as much as he does. He gets so low to the ground while not losing a single half second of speed. Ridiculously deep bag because offensive tackles fear that just reach around the edge, that dip and rip through. He's able to get away with a lot of other stuff inside that maybe he wouldn't be able to if he did not have that trump card being held over the opposing tackle's head every single snap. In the run game, everything you ask from a defensive end. Great intuition, great first step to get in the backfield, hard to move off a spot due to his size. And he had 9 sacks despite being top 4 or 5 in pressures per game among defensive ends. That is because, as I mentioned previously, no one in that 49ers front 7 was consistently giving him any help. Every single one of his sacks he earned. A lot of the Trey Hendrickson sacks, you look and say, okay, the pocket collapsed and Trey Hendrickson was just there at the right place, the right time. Or opposing quarterbacks held the ball too long. Nick Bosa did not get any of that benefit. The quarterbacks he played had a great sense of where he was coming from because really he was the only guy they were looking at and generally managed to get the ball. If Michael Williams is even halfway functional, Bosa is going to be a 12, 13, 14 sack guy with a high double team rate, with a very real presence in the run game. And that's why I got him up here at 4. The sacks do not worry me. Bosa will be just fine.
I could see him 100% finish at 4. He is that quality of talent. I could see him having the 14.5 sacks. For the purposes of my list, the reason I just had him at 7 is I think the production we're going to see from the guys I've ranked above him, name Jared Verse, name Micah Parsons already, I think they're going to have slightly better production than him in 2025.
2025/2026.
Yes. My number 4, a player you named already, a player where neither of us are quite fond of his fan base, is TJ Watt. TJ Watt did take a step back last year. I talked about that already, but he's still one of the best players in the NFL and can contend for Defensive Player of the Year any given year. He still played at a high level. I understand the arguments that you made, but when you look at last season, when it comes to a pressure perspective, what he does as a run defender on the edge for that Steelers defense, what the Steelers defense becomes when he is off of the field, it is atrocious. So I still think he's a top 5 edge defender in the NFL. I have 3 guys ranked above him, which assuredly will piss off Steelers fans. I just can't put him all the way down at 7 where you had him.
Yeah, if he plays at the exact same level he did in 2024 and 2025, I might slide him into around the 5 spot. Still a prolific player, but I just think he's going to take another step back as time ticks on. At number 3, I've got Will Anderson. You pound your chest about, oh, I'm being optimistic about players' health. No, I think being a complete player is important. Will Anderson is the best run defending defensive end in all of football, aside from maybe our number 1 player. Fantastic first 3 steps. People talk about the first step speed mattering. Will Anderson's first step is so quick, you start talking about his second and third step. He gets in the backfield instinctually. He sniffs out run plays better than any other defensive end. He is just there, making tackles for loss, making it so tackles are looking back like, oh man, where'd he go? Where'd he go? And the answer is probably wrapping his arms around a running back. In the pass game, very effective. Not quite as bendy as some of the top tier edge rushers, certainly not like the guy I've got 2, but still capable of consistently long-arming guys, using his power to get into an offensive tackle's chest and shedding off and finding the sack. He won't take the same size step he took from year 1 to year 2, but if he continues to improve in his 3rd year in the NFL, he's going to be an absolute monster. Teams will not be able to run on the Houston Texans because of Will Anderson. They're not going to be able to pass on the Texans because of Will Anderson and Anthony Hunter. This is a scary, scary defense. If they could just put a halfway competent offense around that unit, halfway competent O-line around that unit, the Texans should win a Super Bowl.
I think a lot of the guys I have named in front of Will Anderson are also very solid run defenders, and I think they're just slightly elevated pass rushers at this point in their respective careers. Now, if you're just going to be very optimistic for Will Anderson and the jump he's going to take from year 2 to year 3, like we saw from year 1 to year 2, I can get behind that. I just think Jared Verse, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, Max Crosby, who I have at 3, they've proven through their careers thus far that they're just better pass rushers while also still being very good run defenders.
I mean, if we're going off based off what people have proven, why did we both put Jared Verse at 5 after 1 season with a ton of pressures but not that many sacks? You've got to have some projection and some faith. The guys in their early careers are going to keep improving. Well, I got Hutch all the way up where I do, despite him coming off a massive injury, because I think he'll be able to maintain his level of play or even improve, but come on now.
Well, it's weighing projection and what they've done. It's a combination of both things.
Yeah, and he has done fantastic in the pass game while being the best run defender. So I can't agree with you putting him all the way up there. To me, he is clearly better than everyone else in the NFL besides 2 guys.
At number 3, I have Max Crosby, and he had a down year last year. He had that ankle injury that he was dealing with when he was actually on the field, and then he eventually ended his season and had surgery on that ankle. So presumably, hopefully, he's going to head into the season fresh, healthy, ready to go, playing alongside Christian Wilkins, who will be back for that Raiders defense. They have Pete Carroll in there, formulating the coaching staff on the defensive side of the ball. We know Pete Carroll always typically has solid defenses, so I'm excited to watch the Raiders defense. I'm excited to see what happens with the Raiders team next year, especially with the division that they're playing in, and I think we are going to get a healthy Max Crosby. We know the motor that he plays with, good against against the run, dominant against the pass. I have him at number 3.
Yeah, again, he can jump right up into the top 5 if he can prove he's going to be on the field as much and maintain the motor. I need to see that from an injury perspective for a guy his age. I'm optimistic about it. I've still got him in the top 10. Don't hate your placement of him. Maybe a little bit higher than I would, even if I was confident about him. But I've always been just a twinge lower than Max Crosby than you are. Fantastic run defender, very effective in the pass rush moves he has, contorts his body around in the air more than most people. Great player. At number 2, I've got Micah Parsons, and this is the best pass rusher in the NFL. There has never been a single snap where he's gone out on a football field where Micah Parsons has not been the most athletic guy on the turf. He is fantastic. He is a defensive end who weighs 250 pounds who moves like a wide receiver. You cannot replicate that with training. You cannot replicate that with power from on high. All this is just Micah Parsons and his ability. Crazy bendy, can get parallel with the ground almost with his lower body and still maintain upright, dip underneath, and get to a quarterback. 3rd in the NFL in pressures last year, despite missing 4 games. A preposterous edge rusher. I really wish he did play every single game so he could have had more sacks than Trey Hendrickson, because the tackles he missed out on playing were not good. He missed out on Broderick Jones, which would have been an easy 2 sacks. Missed out on the Browns. It was not a fortuitous season for him. But you're going to jump up and say, oh, what about the run game? What about the run game? Micah Parsons is good at stopping the run if it is just an offensive tackle on him. The issue is, as an outside linebacker, he is seeing a higher double team rate than any other outside linebacker in the NFL on run plays because what is lined up next to him is so pathetic. Whether that be DeMarcus Lawrence, whether that be, is it going to be Dante Fowler this year, the 3 techniques they've got inside him, Mozzie Smith, they're pathetic run defending defensive linemen. They're getting reached by guards. They're getting reached by centers coming all the way to the outside and blocking these guys, letting offenses focus entirely on Micah Parsons. If he just had a halfway decent run, if he had Cam Hayward like TJ Watt does, oh my goodness, the run defending narrative would not exist. He'd be among the best tackles for loss producers in the NFL. Micah's fantastic. You can hate him all you want as a Giants fan, but he belongs on this list. He belongs right here on this list. There's only one guy better than him.
This is not a who's the best pass rusher in the NFL list.
Yes, it is.
This is who is the best edge defender in the NFL list. It is not best pass rusher. It is best edge defender.
Those things are synonymous.
They are not synonymous.
They are near synonymous. It is infinitely more important to be a good pass rusher as an edge defender than to be a good run defender.
They are not synonymous, and a player's value decreases slightly when they are not nearly as good at one skill as they are at the other. Because Micah Parsons is such a good pass rusher, any team would love to have him. There's a reason he's still the 6th on my list, one of the best players in the NFL on the defensive side of the ball. But when you do not have a good run defenders around him, and you're not able to support him in that way, all of a sudden you have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, and he's not able to help buoy that for you. And when he's not getting second and long and 3rd and long opportunities as frequently as some other guys because you can't stop the run, he's not getting as quality pass rush opportunities. So because he is not as good of a run defender, I have him at 6 and not all the way at 2 or even 1, because the run defending portion of his game does not complement how good of a pass rusher he is.
It doesn't complement how good of a pass rusher he is. The importance of edge play is 70% pass rush, 30% run fit. He is by no means a liability in the run game. He is not Trey Hendrickson. You can leave him out on the field and he will demand a double team, which is something you cannot say about Hendrickson. The fact offenses have to entirely concentrate on him, an outside linebacker, when they are running up the middle, tells you that he is a good run defender. And on top of that, he's the best pass rusher in the NFL, which is more important than run defense. Say, oh, well, he can be game planned. He needs talent around him. What guy on this list does not have talent around them and produces? Myles Garrett's got good linebackers. Will Anderson did a great system with talent all around him. Nick Bosa generally had talent around him. Jared Verse, fantastic system. Hutch, fantastic system with talent. Watt, talent around him. Trey Hendrickson is really the only exception you can point to and say, yeah, he was all by himself last year. Maybe Max Crosby post Wilkins' injury. And even Hendrickson had better running mates on the defensive line than Myles Garrett did. You are blaming Dallas's lack of a run defense on Micah Parsons when it couldn't be further from the truth. He's the only reason they were
I'm not blaming it all on him.
The only reason they were not a Carolina Panthers level run defense. And to say, oh, he's a bad
They're
run
one of the
defender.
3 worst in the NFL.
Yeah, they weren't the Carolina Panthers though.
They were pretty close.
No one was close to the Panthers last year. Historically, the worst defense ever. The only reason they were not that bad is because Micah Parsons. And I really do struggle to think what player you could put on this Cowboys team in his spot who would be able to change it, who would be able to make them even an average run defense. Except for, well, we'll get to number one. Except for, of course, number one. But
at number 2, I spoke a lot on Aiden Hutchinson already. I am choosing to be optimistic at the Aiden Hutchinson we see as the season progresses. I think he's going to come back strong from that broken leg. And the rate he was playing at through the first 5 games of the last season was just, I mean, we talked about it, 7.5 sacks. The number of pressures he was getting was insane. I think he would have been right around 20 sacks last year. And I think the jump we saw from his rookie season to year 2 was incredible. So maybe he just stays, if he's a little bit below what he was in year 2. That is still elite, and I think it is just going to get better as the season goes on. So I'm choosing to be optimistic with his injury history, optimistic with what we saw through the first 5 games, and I have him as the second best edge defender in the NFL.
Yeah, I think putting him where you had him in year 2, saying, okay, he was around this level is right. He clearly was not the second best edge player in the NFL in year 2. That's an egregious overranking in my opinion. I like Hutch. The pace came from the weak competition. Very good player, benefited heavily from going up against backups. The fallout between a starting tackle in the NFL to their backup is probably more drastic than the fallout between a starting quarterback and their backup in a lot of cases. It's rough out there. Still think Hutch will be good, but I think having him at 2 is overly optimistic, and you've just been hypnotized by the unearthly production in his first 4.5 games. But again, I'm not going to keep saying negative things about him. Instead, I'm just going to bring up the fact that number 1's Myles Garrett. You all knew who number 1 was coming into this video. Even you Steelers fans in the highest rates of denial knew it was going to be Myles Garrett. Highest double team rate in the NFL. No player is as feared on the defensive side of the ball as Myles Garrett. As good a run defender as Will Anderson. As good a pass rusher as Micah Parsons. Complete package. And still just wrecks games despite offenses doing everything in their power to stay away from him. There is never going to be another player like Myles Garrett. A special physical freak, insanely fast, insanely powerful, ridiculous frame, looks like he's cut out of, well, what's something above marble? Looks like he's cut out of steel. There aren't too many guys like Myles Garrett, man. He is one of one. The only defensive players of his level we've seen in the 2010s and onward are Aaron Donald and J.J. Watt. And in my opinion, he's got a lot more longevity and consistency than J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt certainly had the peaks, but if I just had to pick a random year of a career to have a defensive player, I might go Myles Garrett over Watt, just because you know what you're getting from him. You know you're getting 12, 13 sacks, elite run defense, and a ridiculous double team rate. He's fantastic. He's number 1, and you know it.
If you're not double teaming him in the run or double teaming him in the pass, you better have the play going very quickly the opposite direction from where he is on the field.
Didn't even work against the Eagles when they tried to do that, by the way. You remember the highlight where Saquon Barkley gets in off his breaking hard right, but Jordan Mailata just gets his face crossed entirely by Myles Garrett and gives up a 3-yard tackle for loss. You can't even run away from him.
You could try to. It's not going to work every single time, but he's the most impressive edge defender in the NFL. He led the NFL in pass rush win rate and quarterback pressures. So phenomenal as a pass rusher, elite against the run. The athlete that he is just special. He is worth every penny that the Browns have paid him this past offseason. If there is a non-quarterback worth $40 million, he is going to be one for you. He's essentially like having 2 elite players on that, maybe even 3 elite players on that defensive line with just how dominant it is. When you're an offense game planning to play the Browns defense, you are worried about just him and what he's going to do to your offensive line. So he is by far the best edge rusher in the NFL. He's better than TJ Watt. He's better than Max Crosby. He's better than everyone. He's the best in the league. There's nothing else good I could say about him.
It's hard to not sound like a sycophant when talking about Myles Garrett if you actually know ball, because he really is just that level of player.
That has been our top 10 edge defenders in the NFL. Let us know what your top 10 are looking like down in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.